I thought, what a better way to enjoy the ultimate Christmas show than to have the drummer of one of my favorite bands, to be honest, but also the drummer of the band that wrote my favorite Christmas song of all time. So on the phone, Mike Zelenko of Material Issue, everyone. I really appreciate you joining the show tonight. This is my annual Christmas show. I do a weekly show every single Sunday night. And the last couple of years, man, I've actually featured Material Issue, which I want to get into here in just a second. But I've been featuring your guys' Christmas song, Merry Christmas Will Do. And it's one of those tunes that's by far my favorite Christmas song. And so it means a lot that you would call in on my annual Christmas show. But Material Issue, big fan of you guys. You guys formed in 1985. Is that correct?
The band was formed in 85 by Jim. The band was officially formed in 85 by Jim Ellison with Lance Towser, and the original drummer escapes me. But the lineup that most people know was solidified by 86, which would have been Jim Ellison, Ted Ansani, and myself.
To the classic lineup for sure. And you guys ended up, I wanted to ask you this too, because we live in such a time now where like a lot of my show up here is based on like local Nashville bands. And it's, a lot of young kids who are trying to make it in music and stuff. And it feels like in the music industry today, it's easier than ever to get your stuff in front of the right people, but it's harder to get them to actually care or to take a chance on you. Being from Chicago, how did you guys go about getting signed? You were signed to Mercury, I believe, was the label. How did you guys go along to get a major label deal coming out of Chicago in the late 80s? How did that come to be?
We chose the path of the sort of do-it-yourself path, where in the beginning days, I'd said to ourselves, like, let's not think of ourselves as a local band. Let's think of ourselves as a national act, and let's just own it, and let's book shows outside of the city. So we did a lot of Midwestern stuff, and what was really important for us was to go out to the East Coast, mainly New York City. So we did that, and just sort of ignored any kind of accepting that we were just a local band. We were like, let's just throw it out there, and like you just said about like young acts where they have the resources with YouTube and the internet. We were just like, we're just going to do shows all over the place, even though we're playing in front of 10 people. And that we just built on that.
Yeah.
So it was very organic.
And playing CMJ was pretty important in you guys' early on career. Is that true?
Well, that CMJ, we got that attention from them, and that was down in Austin, like pre South by Southwest. So yeah, that jumped the stuff that we're doing locally to us getting a little national attention. So yeah, that really helped.
I feel like CMJ was one of those festivals that was a really big deal for a while, then later on kind of trickled off. I have some memories of playing CMJ in the later years, and it wasn't nearly what it used to be, kind of like South by. I feel like there was a time whenever South by Southwest and CMJ were really big factors in breaking some bands. And now, I mean, they're kind of more now just kind of a thing just to kind of claim that you played. But back in the late 80s, early 90s, those were definitely some staples that people would play. And so then you guys get signed to a major. And obviously, one of my favorite songs of all time, I got to be honest, man, is Valerie Loves Me. Tell me something about that song. Was Valerie an actual person? I've always wondered that. I'm sure it's cheesy to ask you. I'm sure you've been asked that 1,000 times, but I just have to know.
Well, if Jim was around today, you could ask him directly because he wrote the song. But yes, Valerie was a real person. From what I remember of him telling us details of that song, it was a gal that was a little bit older than him that lived upstairs from him in an apartment in Chicago. So like the lyrics, Valerie's dancing in an apartment above my bed, So it was just classic rock. Adolescent fantasy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, Valerie was a real person. Was her name Valerie? I don't know.
I love that. And I feel like when that song came out, which was, I believe it was 1991, like you guys stuck out like in a really cool way. I mean, in the music industry that time was really kind of overwhelmed with grunge and stuff. And I feel like a lot of bands kind of started doing what you guys were doing about maybe 7 years later. Bands like Super Drag or the Marvelous Three come to mind, bands that kind of did the power pop thing as well. Did you guys have a hard time finding an audience outside of Chicago whenever that record came out? Because the song was, huge and everywhere, but how did people take that coming out of like the grunge era, like pretty much the peak of the grunge era?
I guess the way I would answer that would be that we didn't really care about that stuff. We were just, the blueprint of the band were bands like Cheap Trick and Big Star. Even the mod stuff, we had some mod tendencies, and we were being revisionist, like without really knowing that we were doing that. You know, we were really into the late '70s power pop stuff. And you know, grunge came along, but then we had contemporaries with like Jellyfish. A little bit, you know, a couple of years later, Weezer, that were doing just straight up 3-minute pop songs. So whatever had happened, what we were doing it, and with grunge, we weren't really concerned with what the grunge scene was doing. We really liked Nirvana because we felt Nirvana was doing more what we were doing, just writing good songs. So
yeah. And so the 1994, since this is the Christmas episode of the Buzz Show here with Mike Zelenko of Material Issue, which again I appreciate you calling in so much, man. 1994, you guys released Merry Christmas Will Do, and it was on a collection called Yule Tunes, which is actually a really hard to find collection of songs. Like it's a CD I've seen pop up on eBay and the cassette tapes, but it's really like kind of elusive. What exactly was Yule Tunes? And tell me the story behind Merry Christmas Will Do, because it always kind of has felt like a sad Christmas song, which is what I've always kind of liked about it.
Well, it's a classic Jim Ellison song, which in the spirit of like sort of Jim Croce songs, bittersweet love songs with super sweet melodies and lyrics that that pull at your heartstrings. But Yule Tunes came out in 91.
Oh, 91. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. And that was the band Shoes, who Jeff Murphy is a member of, who produced our first 2 major label records. Yule Tunes came out in like 91, I believe. And Matthew Sweet's on there. The Cave Dogs are on there. It's a tune I remember Jim bringing into the band, like a lot of tunes that he brought in, super raw, not so structured. He showed us some basic chords, and then literally, just like Valerie Loves Me, we spent about, 25 minutes, and within 3 takes, we had it.
And did you guys ever play that song live?
I'm sure we did, especially around Christmas time. But it wasn't part of our regular set. But we did play it. We did play it around Christmas time as maybe in an encore or something like that.
I love that. And so you guys went on for years and toured. You guys were kind of a road dog band, and obviously I know it's a tragic ending with Jim. Jim Ellison passing away in 1996. And how did that feel for you at the time? Because you guys were a very active band when that happened. It kind of put the brakes on everything. How did you process going through something so crazy and public like that at that point in time?
Well, it was extremely difficult. Jim personally, Jim, kind of like the older brother I never had, and anytime you have to deal with that, whether it be in a band or in a family or anything like that, when someone does something like that, it's tough, and it's very, very it's very traumatic, and it's still something that I deal with today, where it just doesn't sit right with me, and you can't go back to that person and pull them out of the grave and like grab them by their lapels and say, like, what did you do to not only me, but your mom and your dad and all that stuff? So, yeah, it was very hard, very hard.
And losing a friend, and then the career element, it's a total separate thing as well. And I saw that, I'm not sure this is true. I've always heard a rumor that you actually, whenever the Smashing Pumpkins, I know you were close with them at one point through your guys' career. And did you auditioned for them around the time they fired Jimmy Chamberlain, like in 97? Is that a true story?
Yes. Yeah. Billy called me, and Joe Shanahan, who owns the Metro, who was their manager really early on. So when Jimmy was fired from the band, Billy had said to Joe, like, find me some drummers. And, at that time, Smashing Pumpkins were like the biggest band on the planet. And Joe suggested me, and Billy called me, and I went in and I auditioned. I thought I did a pretty good job, but I didn't get the gig. But I auditioned for the Smashing Pumpkins.
That's amazing. What song did you guys play? Do you remember?
There's stuff that was, what are some Smashing Pumpkins songs? I did like, I'll put it this way. Terry Bozzio was before me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The Smashing Pumpkins were the biggest band on the planet at that time. And they're a Chicago band. And I literally drove my drums in my van to their rehearsal space, which was like a mile from my house, and they were flying in people from everywhere. And, I'm honored that they asked me to audition for them.
Yeah.
And Matt Walker got the gig. Matt Walker is a fantastic drummer.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I love that. What a cool, that's a cool.
It makes sense that I didn't get that gig because I'm really not the drummer for the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah. No, I feel you, man. That's awesome. So Material Issue, you guys reformed as Material Reissue in 2011. I've tried to come to some of your guys' shows. It's always been one of those things like between, and then back in those days, I was touring a lot myself, but then now living down here in Nashville, it's always tough to get to Chicago. But I've tried so many times to come see you guys with the new incarnation. But how has it felt going back and revisiting those songs, with a new singer and playing those songs again? Have there been a lot of I'm sure a lot of positive thoughts come back, but has there been any sort of sadness when you guys do those shows? What kind of feelings go through you whenever you play a show like that?
No sadness at all, because our approach to it is not to recreate the magic that we may have generated as a three-piece. Ted and my approach to that is let's play these songs with musicians that we know and love and make it. We're not trying to recreate it. We're just trying to play it in the best way possible. So the Material Reissue stuff, what we usually do is in a set, the first 3 or 4 songs would come out as a three-piece, which what Material Issue was, and then we'll have Jay O'Rourke on guitar and Lou Linkhouse on Lou Hollis, I'm sorry, on multi-instrumentalist, and then we just enhance the other tunes. So it's just like it says, it's Material Reissue. It's not Material Issue.
The fan response from the videos I've seen always looks amazing. People are just so pumped to see those songs. If anything, it's definitely a celebration of the great music that you guys, the three of you, made together,
That's what we're trying to do.
Any plans? I know 2020 has been kind of wild, but any plans in 2021 for you guys to do maybe some more shows? Because I got to say, man, you got to bring that show to Nashville, Tennessee. I'd be there at least. That's one person. I'd be there.
All right. Well, well, we're hoping that more than one city than Nashville will want us to play. There is a documentary coming out next year.
Yes.
Balin Schneider, a young filmmaker, has been being very, very thorough, flying all over the country, interviewing people for a documentary, which is in its final cut, and I've seen it, and it's fucking amazing. It's getting a lot of excitement. He is an ambitious young filmmaker, and it's really, really good. And there are some people that are about to close in on a deal to reissue our stuff on vinyl.
Oh, nice.
So 2021 for Material Issue is looking to be really, really good as far as reintroducing the music to a new audience and our dedicated fans for years.
And the documentary is called Out of Time, I believe, right? Because I've been following that on Instagram for quite a while now. I wonder if you guys were involved with that. So that's amazing. And it's cool that it coincides with, I guess, 30 years since the debut record that came out. So that's amazing, man.
With everyone who's involved right now, myself and Ted and Jim's estate, with the documentary and with people who are wanting to reissue our stuff, we're just sort of like, yes, do it. We don't really have a voice in it other than what we're doing with Material Reissue. So there's excitement about the band. There are people that are that want to get this stuff out, and what we hope is that it will be introduced to a younger audience and our dedicated fans. And I think that 2021, I think that there's going to be more people that are going to hear our music. And they should, because it's really fucking good. So
yeah, dude, 100% agree. I've always listed you guys on one of those bands that I always have felt are criminally underrated. I mean, I know you guys had a really good run back in the day and things were great, but like your music is amazing. And I've always been a massive fan of what you guys do. And it means a lot to have you on the show, man. It really means a lot. And everyone watch out for the documentary Out of Time. The Material Issue story is coming out next year, and reissuing the stuff on vinyl, which is going to be amazing. Have you guys had your stuff on vinyl before?
The only vinyl releases that we've had were the ones that we put out ourselves on our own label, which was a 6-song EP back in '88, a 45 that we put out on our own label, Renee Rain's Same, in '89, and International Pop Overthrow, a limited edition of an LP release, and then there was some EPs and B-sides released on Mercury. But as far as vinyl goes, that's it. The rest was CD. Universal owns the rights of our stuff, and like I said, there are people that are getting pretty close to re-releasing this stuff in a reissue, hopefully in a really wonderful package, and it'll be wonderful for our fans to have that available to them.
Well, Mike, it was really an honor having you on the show, man. And I don't say this to everyone. I 100% mean it. But as a drummer growing up in St. Louis, Missouri, I was definitely very influenced by you. I think you have an amazing drumming style. And so it was an honor to have you come on the show, man. I know you're a busy dude, so I appreciate you taking the time to do it, my friend.
Well, that's a really nice thing to say. That's a great compliment, and thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, man. Definitely. And next time you guys come to town, whenever that happens, material reissue, would love to have you guys live in the studio once all this coronavirus nonsense goes away, my man.
All right, Andy. Thanks so much.
Thank you, dude. You have a good one.
All right, you too. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.